VikesNow. I'm Dustin Baker. I'm here from my children's playroom, which doubles as my office. We have a guest, Janik, Janik Eckardt from Germany. He's actually staying with me for a couple weeks, going to multiple Vikings games. How's it going, Janik?
Hey, going great.
You've been on the show twice in the summer. This is your first regular season appearance, so welcome back. And then Josh, the old warhorse, comes every Wednesday. And when I started the Aftermath show Monday, I said that aside from winning a Super Bowl, I don't know of a cooler episode to do that could be possible after the biggest comeback in NFL history. So, Josh, how you been?
I've been good, my man. That comeback was something to watch. I'm still reeling from it, trying to figure out how the hell that happened. But yeah, doing good. Hopefully, we're gonna get another pretty exciting game against the Giants this week.
Well, it's almost guaranteed to be exciting because they're just incapable of doing a mundane Zimmer-like win of 10, 12 points. All right, so here's what, so Monday I talked with the group. I went through all of the broad takeaways, and I left this story till today because Janik is a part of it. And after halftime, it's 33-0. We had this glimmer of hope that maybe they'd score on the first drive, get some momentum. It all felt silly at the time, but of course they didn't. So Janik was sitting next to me, and I already talked with my wife about it. And I asked him, "Would you like to leave?" Because to me, there was no sense to sit there for another hour and a half and watch them lose 62-0. And he said, no. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll just stay here and look like idiots. Because usually my wife and I will skedaddle about maybe 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter when it's decided, the game is decided, because you can beat the traffic. And so I thought, all right, we'll go out to Lions Tap and eat Frey early. But Janik said, no, thanks. Janik, did you think I was nuts or what?
Yeah, I'm not often there, so I didn't want to leave early, so yeah. But I can understand it. I mean, game was terrible in the first half, so I can understand that thought.
Yeah, it was especially going into the third quarter, you needed to have an immediate, or so I thought, an immediate burst of something, and they didn't have that out of the gate. Josh, when did you begin to realize that the comeback was actually real?
I think it was after the second touchdown, when it was 36-14. And it was like, I think we were at that point, it was, I think, early in the fourth quarter. So it was kind of, I was kind of just thinking, if they get another stop here, Colts offense hasn't looked good all day. They go down to score another touchdown, we might end up having a game here. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, Janik, I think we gotta have him stick around for the rest of the season because he might be the good luck charm for this team.
Yeah, I've told him probably 6 times since the game ended that I can't believe your first game in the United States is the greatest comeback in NFL history. Like, you couldn't really, I mean, you can't script it. However many thousands of NFL games have been, and this guy picks this one to go to.
Yeah, pretty lucky.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about the path forward. Janik, I want to ask you this. So this team has been critiqued ad nauseum of being completely fraudulent, semi-fraudulent, but then you have this cardiac mentality where they always find a way to win a close game. Where Janik, is your enthusiasm about the Vikings as a Super Bowl contender after orchestrating the mammoth comeback?
I mean, we don't really look like Super Bowl contenders right now, but the offense is getting better. Defense got some stops, so maybe they can get hot late in the season. So there's always a shot. Playoffs are one and done, so it's always a chance to win.
Josh, it looks like if things go according to plan around the NFL, it seems that the Giants may find their way back to US Bank Stadium for round 1 of the postseason. Your expectations, like mine, have kind of went through ups and downs, although you've been more optimistic about the Super Bowl contendership than me. What does the Colts event do for your appetite on the Vikings, either as divisional round losers, NFC Championship losers, or Super Bowl champions?
I mean, honestly, I don't think this one really changes all that much. I mean, if they ended up losing in a blowout, it definitely would have changed a lot, because I was already at halftime. I was thinking, oh man, this team's going to lose to the Giants. They're going to find ways to lose to the Packers and the Bears, and the Lions are going to get red hot, and they're going to find a way to somehow miss the playoffs, because that's the most Vikings thing that could happen. Right. So but after that comeback, I still think it's kept me thinking that this team, there's definitely a road for them to get to the NFC Championship. I don't know, especially if Jalen Hurts is healthy, if they have the weaponry to really beat Philadelphia, especially in Philadelphia. And then Dallas, that's another team that's going to be super scary, even in US Bank Stadium, considering what they've already done to the Vikings this year. So I still think I'm pretty much the same as I was going into that game, where there's definitely a road to the NFC Championship game. I'm not super sold that they're going to get much further than that, though.
Okay. I'm going to have it both ways in this little speech. So based on history, precedent, and the Vikings statistics, this really is a football team that will probably lose prematurely, at least compared to their record, because they're probably going to finish 13-4, something like that. But they do have divisional round loss written all over them, unfortunately, because they can't put anybody away. However, what I've tweeted before, probably throughout the last month, and I stand behind it. In the past, I know you guys are relative youngins to this Vikings experiment, but when the team was good, you effing knew it. In 1998, in 2009, 2017, because of the defense, you had the vibe that this team had a pathway to the Super Bowl because they were that damn good, especially when they drew the Eagles and Nick Foles number. It felt like, all right, well, we're going against the backup quarterback. We should be able to get to a home Super Bowl. So you always had those expectations that these guys are gangbusters, especially in 1998 and 2009. And it didn't work. So maybe it's preordained that the Norse gods are writing it that, all right, you're going to look like shit at times during the regular season, because what we have in store for you in the postseason is this unforeseen burst of dominance. That's the thing I try to hang my hat on for folks that are trying to keep telling me, yeah, this team is special. Like, oh, no matter what happens, it's been special. First year head coach is 11-3 through 14 games. So yeah, but I do expect them to win the first playoff game, whether that's against the Giants, Commanders, Seahawks, Packers, or Lions. And then going to get dicey. I'm convinced that they'll probably end up having the 3 seed, which means they go to San Francisco. I don't like that one bit. And I will certifiably pick a Niners win in that game. But we shall see how that transgress. So let's talk about the Giants on the docket. This is a team the Vikings could see twice in the next 3 weeks, depending on how Packers, if they lose, the Lions, if they keep winning. Janik, do the Giants scare you at all now or in the postseason?
They don't really scare me. Their defense is terrible, and their offense is not as good as ours. So I think we should handle them. Especially their running defense is really bad. It's one of the worst in the league in all metrics. So I think Dalvin could have a big day.
Dalvin had a pretty mammoth day last weekend too. Even when it still felt like perhaps, well, he had a fumble that sucked, but he did have the game tying touchdown after the 2-point conversion. Josh, explain this to me, your NFL mind. So I thought up until this week that Wink Martindale in New York was running a pretty tight ship. It just, I think based on reputation, it had to be, because they were 8-5-1. I pulled the numbers and it's not that impressive. So were they good out of the gate on defense and then they've tumbled, or what's the story with the Giants defense?
Yeah, I mean, the defense overall hasn't been super great all season, I don't think. I mean, they lost, obviously, James Bradbury in the secondary. That's a big loss for them. And then Kayvon Thibodeau's taken a little bit on the defensive side to get going. I think last week he had a crazy game against the Commanders on Sunday night. That was a really fun game to watch from him. So I do think that initially they kind of started off slow, and now I think they're kind of getting some things together. And then on the offensive side of the ball, that's kind of been where they've had their bread and butter all season long. They're super efficient in the red zone. And the problem with Daniel Jones early on in his career was just having all those turnovers, those fumbles. He led the league in his rookie year. And then pretty much ever since then, he averaged basically 1 a game. And this year he's cut down on turnovers completely. Fumbles are pretty much non-existent from him. I think he has the lowest interception rate in the entire NFL right now. So that's kind of where they've found their success in this season. I don't think the defense is anything to be super concerned about this week, though.
One thing I will call out, Janik and I are pounding the drum for a terrible Giants defense. Indeed, especially rush defense, like Janik pointed out. They are not very good. However, they are very Zimmerish on third downs. They rank 5th in the NFL in stifling teams on third down, and the Vikings are kind of middle of the pack on third down. So that's something to watch for. Somehow the Vikings executed the biggest comeback in NFL history with a pretty shitty third down afternoon. You can kind of throw stats out the window in that game. And that's what I want to talk about next. I want to talk about the perception that Kirk Daniel Cousins didn't do too much during the comeback. Sam Munson from PFF flat out said that the guy really didn't do that much during the comeback. Greg Rosenthal from NFL.com tweeted late in the fourth quarter that it's very Kirk Cousins that this comeback is happening and he's not playing that well. QBR assigned Cousin a 32.9 grade, which is basically Davis Mills in 2022. PFF for his troubles gave him a 59.7 PFF grade, which is basically like Carson Wentz from 2022. And then Josh pointed out to us in our private Slack channels that the Vikings DVOA on the whole was one of the worst of the league of the week. So Janik, what gives here? Is this the stat guys are getting statted? All of us on this show, or we had to walk back our words, or are we in this bubble of homerism that we can't see that Cousins wasn't that good?
It's tough to say, but he did not have as many great throws as he did in Buffalo. He had like 10 or 12 amazing throws that day. On Saturday, he had maybe like 3 or 4 great throws and a lot of average kind of throws. That was what Munson was saying. But even executing easy or average level throws is perfectly every time is not easy. You got to be perfect to gain 417 yards. You can't just go out there and don't do anything and just play a bad game and gain that many yards. It's not that easy. And then he was referring to yards after catch. The quarterback has to throw a good ball to allow yards after the catch. If he just throws it low or at the back of the receiver, he just goes down and that's it. So I think Kirk deserves a lot more credit than the stats give him.
Josh, 417 second half yards was the most in a second half in 45 years. I'm guessing that Munson or Rosenthal or ESPN think that he just walked into 4 touchdowns, like luckiest guy on earth. It had to be the luckiest person on earth in that hour and a half during the comeback. Janik provided insight that there weren't Buffalo-like throws. But what else are we missing? Is there anything else that we're missing, or is this just more of the Kirk Cousins experience?
I'm glad we're talking about this because I definitely have a few things to get off my chest with this one as well. Everybody that I've seen, especially on Twitter, is pointing to that 60-yard Dalvin Cook screen pass that he took to the end zone, which would be fine as a criticism of Kirk if he didn't have another 400 yards, another 3 touchdowns, a 2-point conversion, a game-winning drive, and also screen passes the entire season have not worked for the Minnesota Vikings. So if that's the thing you're going to critique him on, as he's relying on his offensive weapons to provide too much, then I don't understand why we're criticizing him before this season, because all the Minnesota Vikings have done is try to do screen passes and they've never worked. And he's had to do pretty much everything for this offense ever since he got here. So I don't understand that. And then to say that he didn't have good throws in that game, go back and watch the overtime drive, that field goal drive. He had a deep pass to Justin Jefferson. He had a deep pass, a 25-yarder, I think, to Adam Thielen. And then he had a 40-yarder to KJ Osborne in that game that didn't even count. So, I mean, I really don't understand why people are saying that this wasn't a good Kirk game. I mean, I get it that the first half, if you're going to count the second half, you also have to count the first half, which, granted, he was absolutely terrible in that first half. But I feel like he more than made up for it in that second half and overtime. So if you're going to say that it was more of an average game from Kirk, then just point to that first half and say that he was bad, so it screwed up our metrics, and we have to grade him a little bit lower than he deserved in that second half. But all everybody has done is discount what he did in that second half. And if you're going to do that as part of your critique of Kirk Cousins, then I don't understand how anybody in this league has managed to have high PFF grades in the NFL, because yards after catch, don't tell me that Patrick Mahomes didn't rely on Tyreek Hill over the past few years to get yards after catch. You're not going to convince me of that. That offense is built on yards after catch. So it doesn't make sense to me. So I'll just leave it at that.
I was telling Janik this morning that why don't these guys or gals just take the L and move on? Like, just shut up. Like, because it's an absolute twilight zone to look at a stat sheet and see a person with 417 passing yards and 4 touchdowns in a half in a 33-point comeback, and then your reaction is, oh, he didn't play that well. I mean, it's a total twilight zone. There's no other explanation. And I flat out don't understand. The only way I could wrap my head around it at all is if they were 4 rushing touchdowns by Madison and Wongwu, or Sweet by Jalen Reagor, but they're 4 passing touchdowns, people. And for the life of me, I will not. And I'm pretty immune to Kirk criticisms by this late in the game. But yeah, this one I've tried to wrap my head around, and it's unsuccessful. If you think that he had a poor game and we're on to Wednesday and you're still pounding that drum, just let it go. I mean, you look buffoonish. The other thing I want to talk to the group about is cornerback. So Patrick Peterson, thank God, has been the healthiest member of the cornerback room, or at least starters. And, who would have thunk it at age, what do we figure out? He's 32. He's holding things together. They have kind of a rotation, Janik, between Cameron Dantzler, who was active but then didn't play, Duke Shelley, who's now the greatest thing since sliced bread. With that dynamic, Janik, do you predict Dantzler gets his job back as soon as he's ready to go, presumably this weekend? Or are we going to see the Shelley experience, or 50-50?
Well, I think Dantzler will be back. He was probably just not playing because of his illness. At least that's what I think, because he hasn't done a bad job or has played poorly enough to lose his job. But maybe we'll see some Duke Shelley moments, and yeah, just hope one of them can stop the opponent.
Josh, Shelley was the highest ranked, I think, Viking in general, certainly defender via PFF. Now we can use PFF for these conversations. Against the Colts, do you foresee him as a person that has turned the corner in year 4 and can be a starter, or is he just still filling in until Dantzler's ready?
I mean, I do think that there's a possibility that we see some Duke Shelley this week, but I don't think that should be a knock on Cam Dantzler's play at all this season. I think, honestly, Duke Shelley has been really good in situational spots. Red zone defense, he's made a couple crazy plays, especially if you take into account the size that he is compared to the receivers that he's guarding. It's been some of the craziest cornerback play we've seen all season. So I do think that there's going to be spots, especially down there, where we're going to see some Duke Shelley for probably the rest of the year. And that's probably just because he thrives down there for whatever reason. He knows how to get the job done. And if we can put Cam Dantzler out there for more of the open field snaps, I think I think there's going to be a good balance of that between those two guys for the rest of the year. And maybe Duke Shelley can't be a regular starter, like consistently putting up big numbers on a yearly basis. But I do think that there's a spot for him in this league, and he's continued to prove that this year.
Yeah, and I like to point out that perhaps it won't happen with him, but there certainly is NFL precedent all over the place where a player does indeed earn a job like this in year 4 and nobody's really ever heard of him, and he turns out to be a solid starter. So this wouldn't be like can't believe we're starting Duke Shelley. This does happen, especially for offensive linemen, where they figure it out and they're suddenly good. All right, 2 things left, pretty short ones. Janik, I think September 10th, 2023 is week 1 of Vikings football next season. Will Ed Donatel be the defensive coordinator?
I don't think so. It just hasn't been good enough. I hope they find someone else. And if he comes back, I hope he fixes some things, because that lack of aggressiveness, that's just terrible. But maybe he learned his lesson. Vikings had the most pressure, the most highest blitz rate all season against the Colts. So maybe that's a shot that you learn some things.
And it was the best Vikings defensive performance since probably the Commanders game. if not the fourth quarter of the Bills game, but you can't really just section that off. Josh, you get the same questions. September 10th, I think it will be, 2023. Is Ed Donatel the Vikings defensive coordinator?
As of now, I'm kind of leaning towards yes for a couple of reasons. Mainly one, this team's going to be a playoff team. So it's going to be hard to find a reason to say that, oh, we need to change things up on the coaching staff because we didn't have enough success this year. And then two, his two top draft picks that were both on the defensive side of the ball have played virtually none this year. So I do think that if we can find some younger, more versatile, some faster defenders, especially at the linebacker spot this offseason, I think that there's a chance that this thing can turn around in 2023. Plus, I think Luke Braun does a pretty good job of breaking this stuff down out on Locked On NFL or Locked On Vikings. I do think that year two of these systems, of Vic Fangio-esque systems, they do a lot better in year two than they do year one, just because it's a lot of different stuff that these guys have to learn, and it's very intricate defensive style that these guys are trying to learn all in basically a 3-month span before the season starts. So I do think that there's a chance, switch up some things on the personnel, maybe the scheme a little bit. There's a chance that this thing bounces back in 2023. So I do think that he'll probably be back next year.
Well, hopefully he gets the memo that, like Janik was talking about, that it's not illegal to blitz, and especially when you're already getting torched for 450 yards per game, you might as well get torched for 450 yards a game while blitzing a little bit. That's the working theory, anyhow. All right, so I'm still convinced, but I'm sick of predicting it. I'm convinced that the Vikings have it in them to beat an opponent by more than 17 points. Hasn't happened over 3 years now, but I'm not going to do it because I keep looking like an idiot. I have Vikings 37-27, which would feel like a big deal because they finally beat somebody by 8. Janik, hit us with your prediction and why.
So I predict 36-20. I'm picking a 2-score game every week and never get it. So I just hope for a 2-score win, first since 2019, I think, against the Chargers. So it's time the Vikings beat the team convincingly.
Josh, I think you have a lower score in mind. Explain and defend it. What is it?
Yeah, I'm going to go Vikings 20-17 in this one. The biggest reason for that is I keep looking back on that Bills game where they mounted that comeback and then the stinker that they put up the following week against the Cowboys. So that's kind of lingering in the back of my mind as I'm making this prediction. I'm a little bit worried that we're going to get another one of those type of games this week, but I do think that this team's going to be able to, they're going to keep this thing going. And they're gonna. I think they showed some things on the defensive side this week in that second half that they can draw up again this week against the Giants team. So yeah, I'm gonna go Vikings 20-17, close game. Maybe Greg Joseph hits another game-winning field goal. But yeah, we're gonna come out with another win.
Yeah, I hate that you said that because I hadn't thought about that until now, that they did indeed have a fat hangover, and now I'm going to think about it for the next 3 days. So yeah, shame on you, Frey. All right.
My bad.
All right. Any closing arguments from Janik? Janik, you'll be all over my shows for the next, probably few days and more than that. You got anything else for this segment?
Nope. Just thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Josh, closing argument?
Let's go get another win. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Absolutely. The most important thing to watch for Vikings football this week is to keep hold of the 2 seed. That's really all they're playing for. They cannot go any further, drop any further than the 3 seed. It is mathematically impossible. And then on Jefferson watch, he'll certainly break the Vikings record barring injury, and then perhaps the NFL record, probably not this week, but the week after or thereafter. All right, gentlemen, take it easy.
One more thing.
Oh, yeah.
One more thing. Dalvin Cook, he's going to set a career high for games played in a single season this weekend. He's play his 15th game.
Yeah, I've thought about writing how remarkably healthy he's been, but then the jinx thing creeps in. Not that I believe in those, but then I'll get skewered for mentioning it because then he'll fumble, of course, and get hurt.
Yeah, no, there's one going up on Purple PTSD later this afternoon.
Okay, so you can take the blame.
Yeah, we can blame it on us over here.
All right, gentlemen, we'll talk to you soon. Take it easy.
See ya.